Good evening and welcome once again to another program of Issues in the News, where we discuss the important events that have taken place in Guyana over the past week or so. And as is the norm, we always have a large number of issues worthy of discussion. Tonight is no different. I want to welcome our viewers who are joining us on television from region number 5, West Coast Berbice. I want to also welcome our viewers who are joining us on television from region number 6 along the Berbice River, New Amsterdam, Kanji, along the Quarantine Coast, all the way to Siparuta. Welcome to another program of Issues in the News. To our viewers and listeners who are joining us from Freedom Radio, Rob Street, Georgetown, welcome to another program of Issues in the News. And last but not least, to the tens of thousands of you who are joining us on Facebook Live across the length and breadth of Guyana, the Caribbean, North America, Europe, Asia, and beyond. Welcome to another program of Issues in the News. Share this program. Share this program so that all your friends and all your followers can join us in tonight's discussions. Please share the program, share the live so that your friends and your followers can join us. Use the comments section to raise issues that you would like me to discuss, either in this program or in future programs. Use the comment section also to let me hear your views, request of me any clarifications which you may wish to have, or request of me to answer any questions you may wish to pose. So please let us make this program an interactive one. Use the comment section, put your comments in. I see Danny Rampasad, Kevin Samaru, Sridat Rabindranath, Sledgehammer, what a name, Loknath Bisoon, Jean Hussein Tolaram, Moralidar, Iris Ali, and so many of you are already on. Share the program so that all your friends and followers can join us in tonight's discussion. So last week, a very important event took place in Guyana. We had on Thursday the privilege of hosting the Secretary of State of the United States, Mr. Marco Rubio, in Guyana. Mr. Rubio is the third Secretary of State of the United States who have visited Guyana over the past 5 years or 4 years. They come from the others. Rubio is a Republican, and we had one from the Democratic government as well. It is not normal for 3 secretaries of state to visit a small country like Guyana. Just compare it with 60 years before, over 60 years, dating back to our independence, and you would see that we never had the privilege of such high-ranking U.S. government officials visiting our country before. These occurrences must not be taken for granted. They are a demonstration beyond doubt of the confidence that a powerful government like the US government has in Guyana, has in the future of Guyana, and has in the government of Guyana. And Mr. Rubio did not mince words in relation to how he felt about Guyana and how the US government feels about Guyana. Significantly, he was very clear and very emphatic in relation to where the US government stands regarding our national sovereignty and the threat that Venezuela poses to our national territory. You heard what the Secretary of State said in very unambiguous and unequivocal language. In relation to that matter, there is no need for me to reiterate that. But anyone listening or reading what the Secretary of State said cannot be in doubt where the US stands. And the US has expressed a view that has been chorused and echoed by so many other governments across the globe, including the Caribbean, South America, Latin America, and Europe. And we welcome that support. But the Secretary of State made some other statements of fundamental importance. He said also in very clear language that Guyana is one of the most exciting places to be on planet Earth. That, my friend, is not an ordinary endorsement coming from the United States of America and coming from one of the most powerful office holders in the United States of America. He also said that there are countries that are stagnated, there are countries that are developing, and there are very, very few countries that are transforming. And he identifies Guyana as being in the latter group of countries. Again, that is not an ordinary endorsement. These statements illustrate not only to Guyanese, but to the world, that Guyana is one of the most desirable and attractive investment destination in the world. And then, of course, those statements, I thought, would have made every group of Guyanese happy, or rather elated. I thought that such an endorsement would have boosted our global image to such an extent that every Guyanese of worth would be proud of their country, having regard to the journey we have traveled to be here. We have had publicity for the wrong reason. For example, Jonestown. In the past, we have also had publicity for rigged elections. We have had publicity for the assassination of the world-renowned historian Dr. Walter Rodney. We have had public notoriety for our level and rate of migration. Now we have a different type of publicity, positive publicity. And you would have thought that that would make every Guyanese happy and beam with pride, but not those in the opposition. Like petulant children, they were apparently envious because in their myopic minds, these endorsements of our country, I presume, I speculate, were interpreted by them to be compliments to the government of the day. And they cannot stomach that. Their petulance will not permit them to digest that. So they had to find something negative to say about the visit, which was a resounding success from all indications. So the Secretary of State made reference to a particular road in Guyana, and that became the news. And they published that with such glee. They published that almost ecstatically. And you realize that this is a really sad bunch. This is sadism, because they take enjoyment from something that is negative. And that is what they have been sharing on Facebook. Not that the Secretary of State has come here and defended vigorously and emphatically the territory of Guyana. Not that he has said to the world that Guyana is one of the best places to be. Not that he has said to the world that the future of our country is secured, that the people of our country has a bright future. All those things that he said did not register with the purveyors of doom. They extracted that one statement that the Secretary of State did not even say here. He said it in Suriname. And he was making a point. He was referring to the Chinese, obviously. It was not a condemnation of Guyana, he was making a point about the Chinese. And that became the news story of the week. And, not surprisingly, perhaps the most petulant bunch in the country, the Alliance for Change, was not prepared to express their diatribe on Facebook alone, but they put pen to paper and they wrote with great haste. They wrote Mr. Marco Rubio a long letter. And I looked at the letter, and go and read the letter for yourself. And you see when bitterness poisons the mind, when hate contaminates the brain, you get what was in that letter. They did not express, one would have expected that a national party, or a party that would like to describe itself as a national party, would first of all thank the Secretary of State for the position he has taken on Guyana's national territory and territorial integrity. Not a word about that. You would have thought also that they would have expressed some gratitude, even begrudgingly, to the Secretary of State for his very generous but accurate remarks on the state of our country and the potential of our country for the future. Not a word about that. But they went on, according to them, to clear up some misleading information that the Secretary of State had about who built the road that he may have been referring to. Well, I don't know how they knew which road the Secretary of State was referring to. I don't know how they know which road, and how they know that the government of Guyana informed the Secretary of State that that particular road was built by Chinese contractors. I don't know how they come to that conclusion. But that is what they engage the Secretary of State in. That. Such frivolity. But you know, Mr. Marco Rubio was one of the many powerful voices during that infamous 5 months period after the 2020 March 2nd elections, when the AFC and the APNU tried to rig those elections. Marco Rubio and many others in the US Senate and House of Representatives and holder of government offices in the United States government, many of them wrote letters, issued statements, put tweets on their social media platforms condemning the rigging cabal as they attempted to steal the ballots of the Guyanese people for 5 months. Rather than write this letter to Rubio Nigel Hughes and the AFC should write and explain their role in attempting to rig those elections for the 5 months. And Mr. Rubio, in the meetings with the government, he raised that issue. He remembered vividly the record-breaking attempts at altering the results of the elections. He remembered, he raised it with us in discussions. And those people who are writing him now were among the miscreants and rigging architects for that 5 months period. Nigel Hughes told the nation recently, about 3 months ago, that he has to investigate and inquire into what role the AFC played. He doesn't know. All of you know. All of you can tell him, but he doesn't know. But he knows to write Rubio, to tell Rubio about which contractor built which roads. He can't tell Rubio how they attempted to steal elections. And his wife and Ramjatan and his party were very much part of that rigging design. So this is what you have to contend with. And as I am on it, I see their coalition talks going on. And what you are witnessing here now is a discussion of how the spoils of government are going to be shared. That's what you're witnessing now. The people's interest is being put on hold. That's not important. What they can do for the Guyanese people. They're not talking about that. You would have expected that these two parties will sit down and the first item on the agenda is what would be their development plan for the Guyanese people. How, if they win the government, they will eradicate poverty that they're speaking about so much. How they will address all the issues that they keep criticizing the government in respect to. I thought they would have told us how they will get investments and how they will ensure that they will reduce crime and unemployment and all the many things that they keep promising. But their first task at the table is how they will share the government. My friends, you don't have to listen to me or listen to the People's Progressive Party if you want to see the real intention of these persons. Just look at what they're negotiating, how they will share government. And the AFC wants 40%. Now, politics, electoral politics, is about one's ability to get votes. Tell me, honestly, from everything that you have seen, you think the AFC can attract 40% of votes from any part of this electorate? Let's take Region 6. You think they can get 40% of any vote in Region 6? Take Region 9. You think they can get 40% of the votes? Take Region 4. You think they can get 40% of any votes in Region 4? 40% of the votes. And there's an angle for the presidential candidate as well. And if they don't get the presidential candidate, they want the leader of the list. They want that powerful position to determine who they can recall from Parliament and who they can put in Parliament. And 40% of the government or the seats in the Parliament. It's a matter for the PNC. I respect the PNC as a formidable political force in this country. And the leader of the PNC has already said that nobody will ride the backs of the PNC. Well, he has his work cut out for him here. It's a matter for them. So, my attention was drawn to a news story where Mr. Vincent Alexander is at it again. Mr. Vincent Alexander and person of his ilk have been spreading a particular type of political propaganda in this country for 35 years, or about 30 years now. About 30 years. In fact, since the 1997 elections, they have been spreading this propaganda. And Vincent Alexander is one of the main architects. Recall in 1997, Mr. Dudnath Singh was the chairman of the Guyana Elections Commission. Comrade Janet Jagan was the presidential candidate of the PNC, of the PPP, sorry. They said that the PPP rigged those elections, as usual, and they burned down half of Georgetown, they beat people in the streets, they robbed, they maimed, they burned the roads along the East Coast, they robbed hundreds of people along the main roadways of this country, so much so that the PPP had to give up 2 years of government. That is the very election they challenged because of the use of a voter's ID card that they asked for. But Alexander and his crew, you had people like Clem David, Roger Moore, Laurie Alexander, and others. They were peddling in the public domain since then that the PPP rigged those elections, and the method of rigging, according to them then, was that the PPP had a cable. Listen to this. A cable which they ran from the Pegasus Hotel on the ground into the Guyana Elections Commission. And through that cable, they were able to alter the results in the computer system. And they identified two persons. They used to call them the Deepu brothers. Sherlock Deepu and some Sherlock's brother. Those were the two persons, they said, run that operation with this cable running from Pegasus underground into GCOM. You know who was Dudnath Singh's logistics officer for those elections when he was chairman? Joseph Frederick Harmon. A lot of people forgot that. Joseph Harmon was Dudnath Singh's logistics officer. A logistics officer is the one who actually executes the plan of action. So whatever Dudnath Singh had to do, if apparently according to Alexander, Dudnath Singh would have been part of some rigging cabal, well, Joe Harmon was there very much so. He was the logistics officer for Mr. Dudnath Singh. And he's around. You can ask him. and let him explain the role that he played. And how come, as a former intelligence army officer, if he didn't know about the rigging, how come he didn't know? And he was a logistics officer. Elections after elections, these people come up with the most bizarre, outrageous, and ludicrous bundle of allegations. So that was the allegation in 1997. In 2001, when they lost again, and even before they lost, the story that they peddled was that Trinidadians were brought into the country by plane loads and boat loads and were hidden along the Linden-Soesdijk highway in the bushes, and they came out to vote on election day and then disappeared in the bushes and then went back to Trinidad. That is what they were peddling on the TV, and that is what they told their supporters. Thousands of Trinidadians, they said, we brought into the country and hid them on the Linden-Soesdijk highway. That is the 2001 elections. And every elections after that, they have concocted a similar narrative. For the 2006 elections, they said we had thousands of Brazilians that we were legitimizing in the country. Thousands of Brazilians that we were making citizens so that they can vote. The 2011 elections, they won a majority. So they didn't have any wickedness then. 2015, they didn't have any wickedness. 2020, we bring people out from the burial ground. 15,000 dead people. And I don't know how many from Queens, New York. And we get them to vote. That was the allegations. And there was some election also, I remember, where they accused us of bringing tens of thousands of Guyanese from Suriname and hiding them somewhere at Crabwood Creek and Skeldon and get them to vote. Yes, I remember that too. You will remember it too. So we had tens of thousands coming over from Suriname, voting and going back. And 2020, they may have run out of countries. So they went to the cemetery. And Alexander told us that 15,000 dead people walked out of the different burial grounds and voted. And none of them didn't see it. And the polling agents didn't see it. This election now I see him again. He's saying mischief is afoot. That we are moving people now from PPP strongholds into PNC strongholds to manipulate the election results. Don't ask me how. Don't ask me how. He's saying that the changes that we have done to the law is to allow us to move persons from PPP strongholds to PNC strongholds. I don't know if they can vote first in the PPP stronghold, and then they're going over vote again in the PNC stronghold, but they're voting for the PPP. Only in Alexander demented and delusional mind he can explain those things. These are configurations in his head that he's articulating. When we made these amendments in 2022, you would know that we published these amendments, first of all. We send them out. We put it on websites. We send them out to interested organizations. We invited those organizations to meet with us. Then we had a grand meeting at the Arthur Chung Convention Center. Alexander was present. All the political parties were present. The AFC was present. The PNC was present. Alexander was present. Alexander never raised an issue in relation to this amendment that he's now objecting to. The removal of residency as a requirement from the legislation. Never raised that. And let him point anywhere where he has raised it. Now that election is upon us, he has discovered that there is a problem now. And he's telling you what the intent of the PPP is. This legislation was debated in the parliament. It was debated for several hours. Many APNU persons and AFC persons spoke on this legislation. In fact, they supported the amendments. They did not vote against it. They spoke on the bill. None of them raised the issues that Alexander is now raising. And that is why I said to a reporter who called me yesterday to answer Alexander, and I said to her, and I hope that she publishes what I said. I said to her that Mr. Alexander is demented, is delusional, and is paranoid. I can't help those types of persons. Those are serious conditions. So, we have this issue that is occupying some attention in the public domain. It is the expressed intention of the Georgetown mayor and some of the councillors to promulgate a financial regulation by which they intend to waive interests on outstanding rates and taxes. The Minister of Local Government has rightfully intervened and indicated both to the mayor and the town council and to the public that the mayor and city council has no power in law to waive any such interest. The Mayor and City Council is governed by the Mayor and City Council's Act. That Act allows for the imposition of interests at a particular rate. That is a legislation. What that means, it is an authorization of the Parliament, the elected representatives of the people at the National Assembly level, authorizing the municipality to impose a rate of interest specified by the Parliament upon outstanding rates and taxes. If Parliament wanted to give the Mayor and City Council an additional power to waive that tax, that interest, then Parliament would have so specified. And Parliament would have also specified the conditions and the circumstances which must be satisfied before such a waiver takes place, and the terms and conditions of that waiver. That is how laws are stipulated. The Parliament has given no such authority to the Mayor and City Council. In fact, the Municipal and District Council Act is not silent on the matter. I see somewhere it is written that the legislation is silent. It is not. Parliament has given a power to make financial regulations, but it has not given that power to the mayor or the mayor and city council. It has given that power to the minister. And it has given that power for the minister to do so by regulations. And those regulations will have to be laid in the National Assembly by that minister and published in the official gazette, because it is a law. Any form of taxes, any form of fees at that level, as they relate to property, it is a form of taxation. Or any reduction or waiver in relation thereto is a form of taxation. And those of us who are schooled in legal history would know that out of the Magna Carta came a principle, 1200 BC, that there shall be no legislation, no taxation without legislation. A king was killed in England for that, in that struggle. So sacrosanct is that principle. And who are to make legislation is provided for by the law. So those who wish to embark on this process of waiving interests will be held personally liable, both them and the beneficiaries will have to account for the monies involved. That is the law of Guyana. And it is an open secret that this is a scheme that is not driven by any benevolent motive. This is not something that is driven by a positive intent. This here is to help a few selected persons who owe large accumulated amounts of money to the mayor and city council, including large sums of money as interests. And this is intended to benefit those persons. For all you know, promises have already been made and money is already received as a form of incentive to unfold this plan. That is what is happening here. And I have no reason to doubt the information that I have received. So on the one hand, you have a PNC, and let me show you how duplicitous these PNC councillors are. So on the one hand, you have one of them, one grouping of them, at the Georgetown Mayor City Council, who are masquerading as acting in the best interest of the taxpayer and ratepayer by writing off some interest for them. That is the impression that they want to convey. According to them, they want to release some pressure of a very taxed public. That is the mantra that they are running in Georgetown here. So they are good people. They want to alleviate the burdens of cost of living. I think that's one of the PR argument that they are articulating out there. This bunch. Then contrast that with their counterparts, another PNC grouping, at the Linden Town Council. His Excellency the President has reiterated an announcement already made late last year that tolls will soon be removed from the bridge at Wismar. The President announced that tolls will be removed from that bridge and a date has been identified. The PNC crew at that town council is opposed to the abolition and removal of the rates of the tolls. So here you have, in Georgetown, you have a PNC grouping that is fighting for the waiver of interest because they want to alleviate the cost of living, and their counterparts in Linden, Sharma Solomon et al., are fighting against the removal of tolls. So while these in Georgetown would like to remove the burden from the backs of Georgetown residents, those in Linden are fighting ferociously to keep the tariffs on the backs of the Lindeners. And these guys expect you to take them seriously. These guys expect you to take them seriously. What is the principle? Or is every party playing their own song? Is one party, the PNCs, what is their philosophy? What is their ideology? Where do they stand on these matters? I thought that they would support. The removal of tolls. Now imagine if we had announced that we will remove the tolls from the Berbice River Bridge, but we will not remove the tolls from the Wismar River Bridge. Can you imagine the racists? Can you imagine what the racists will do with that type of information? Can you imagine what the racists will do with that type of information? They would head down to the United Nations. They would go to every line top in this country to cry apartheid and to cry racism. And here it is. Our government is being even-handed, is being equitable, is being non-discriminatory, is extending equal treatment by removing tariffs, removing tolls from all the bridges in Guyana where tolls are levied. And to do that, we have invoked the wrath of the elected representatives of the people who will benefit from this removal. But had we not done it, they would run to Linden to say that we are treating Barbicians differently. And why? They would tell them, because Barbicians are of a different ethnicity. They have done it over and over again. They have done it over and over again. Historically, they ran to Linden to tell the bauxite workers that we are giving the sugar workers everything. When they want the sugar workers to strike, they go to the sugar workers and they tell the sugar workers we're giving the bauxite workers free electricity and we're giving Linden free electricity. That is what they do to spread their racism. That is what they do, my friend. So you have this contradiction between the posture of the Georgetown City Council and the posture of the Linden Town Council. And you determine how you will resolve it. We will be launching the automated speeding ticket system within a few days. I think a date has been identified. A lot of work has been put into this platform to ensure that the system accords with the law, to ensure that due process is extended, to ensure that the data is accurately produced, to ensure that the equipment used are properly tested and calibrated so that it will produce accurate data. In the first phase, 2 offenses will be targeted. Speeding and driving without seat belts. The image will be captured on a camera and the speed recorded. That image and speed would be sent to a database where it will be examined, and once it is determined that this particular speed limit has been exceeded, then an electronic ticket would be automated. That ticket will be sent to the registered owner of the vehicle by WhatsApp, by email, by registered post, and will also be manually served. That ticket will indicate the offense allegedly committed and the penalty for that particular offense. It will invite persons who wish to plead guilty to pay that fine either at a specified court or at an identified payment center. For example, MMG has been identified as a payment platform. If one wishes to challenge that ticket, then one will have to appear at a magistrate's court that will be indicated on the ticket. So it is a system that has been thoroughly scrutinized, and it will unfold shortly. The last thing, well, not the last thing, yes, we are approaching program time, and I see that many people have asked me to comment on a statement that was sent to me, issued by Melissa Atwell. I glanced at the statement. I don't think that Melissa Atwell is capable of writing such a statement. But I see that the government of Guyana is being accused of informing the US government about her overstay. Well, in the US, that she overstayed for 3 days, and it was the government, the PPP, that had to inform the government of the US. Imagine, but let's just rewind a little. The PPP and Guyanese were told by this woman, operator, you will agree with me, you heard it. We were told by this woman that she's an American citizen. And an American citizen a long time ago. In fact, she told me, she did a dedicated speech to me and told me that she's an American citizen. She also told us that she writes to the FBI regularly, and she writes to the American government regularly, and she has great protection in the United States. All of that she said to us, and said to every Guyanese. But imagine the great United States of America, and she always says how great they are. The great United States of America, where the justice system works and the law works, will have to wait on the PPP to send a message to them, according to her, through a lobbying firm, to inform ICE that she has overstayed and that her marriage is fraudulent. The PPP is so powerful that the US government will stop all their business and they will listen to the PPP and they will go after this character. But that is what Guyanese hold on to. The 592 crowd. That, and I look at the statement is being shared all over. The statement about she lied to all of them, telling all of them that she's a Guyanese, that she's an American, that she's married, that she's writing the American government, and she's doing this. All that she has lied to all of them. They're not offended about that. But she has issued some statement to say that the PPP is behind her detention. And everybody hold on to that. It's not a problem. Carry on merrily. We have a government to run. We have a country to manage. We have people's welfare to look after. We have the future of this country to manage and protect and preserve. We have neither the time, the energy, or the inclination to expend valuable energy and resources behind characters such as these. We have a lot more important things to do. Unfortunately, the world, or our world, doesn't revolve around these characters. contrary to what a few people may think. I want to thank you very much for being with me over the past hour. I think we have covered a lot of grounds. I want to thank you very much for being here. Please enjoy the rest of Navratri. Navratri is still ongoing. We just celebrated Eid. Eid Mubarak again to all my Muslim brothers and sisters. And from Navrat, we will move straight into Easter. Good evening and enjoy the rest of the week until we meet again. Thank you.